Chapter 1. The Hungry Sun. The world is not free, it is alone. Long before the first tall ships appeared on the horizon, the people of the Americas lived by a single, terrifying truth. The universe is a machine that runs on blood. To the Aztec, the Maya, and the Inca, death was not just an end, it was a payment. They believed that the sun was a warrior who died every night and struggled to be reborn every morning. If the sun did not have the energy to rise, the world would end in eternal darkness. This was not murder as we think of it today, it was life support for the cosmos. The death penalty in ancient America was the most important job in the world. It was a cosmic duty to ensure that the rain fell, the corn grew, and the stars stayed in their places. Today, we look back at these rituals and see only brutality. We see the obsidian blades and the blood-stained pyramids. But to understand the true story, we have to look past the horror. We have to look at the logic. We have to understand why a father would offer his child to a mountain, or why a warrior would walk willingly to his own execution. This is the story of the blood debt. Chapter 2. The Black Glass Blade. In the center of the great city of Tenochtitlan stood a mountain of stone. It was the Templo Mayor. At the top of these 365 steps, the air was thick with the smell of old blood and heavy smoke. The tool of execution was the tekpotl. It was a knife made of obsidian. Obsidian is not a rock, it is volcanic glass. It is blacker than the night and sharper than any steel razor ever made. To the Aztecs, this knife was a god. It was a living thing that had a hunger of its own. When a prisoner was led to the top of the temple, he was not fighting. Often he was calm. He had been fed well. He had been treated like a guest. He was told that his death would turn him into a butterfly or a hummingbird that would follow the sun forever. 4 priests would grab his arms and legs. They would stretch him over a curved stone called a tekpotl. This stone was designed to push the chest upward, stretching the skin tight over the ribs. The high priest would raise the black glass blade. With one swift movement, he would cut through the chest. He would reach his hand into the opening, not with hesitation, but with the speed of a surgeon. He would grab the heart. He would pull it out while it was still pulsing, still full of the precious water that the sun needed to drink. The heart was placed in a stone bowl. The body was pushed down the steps. As it tumbled, it was seen as a falling star. The debt was paid. For one more day, the sun would have the strength to fight the darkness. Chapter 3. The Flayed God and the Second Skin. But sometimes, a heart was not enough. Sometimes, the gods needed the skin. There was a god named Xipe Totec. He was the Flayed Lord. He represented the way a seed must break its husk to let the plant grow. To celebrate him, the Aztecs performed an execution that still haunts historians today. After a prisoner was killed, the priests would carefully remove the skin from the body. They would do it in one piece, keeping the face and the hands intact. Then, a priest would put that skin on. He would wear the dead man's skin as a suit for 20 days. Imagine the sight. A priest walking through the city streets, his own eyes peering out from behind the eye holes of a dead man's face. The skin would start out red, then turn yellow and dry like a corn husk. To the people watching, this was not a monster. This was a miracle. It was a symbol of life coming out of death. It was a reminder that for the earth to be green, something must die and be buried. When the 20 days were over, the priest would shed the skin. It was like a snake shedding its old life to become new. It was the ultimate prayer for a good harvest. Chapter 4. The Blue Void. To the south, in the thick jungles of the Maya, the death penalty took a different form. The Maya did not have many rivers, but they had cenotes, deep natural wells that led to the dark water below. The Maya believed these wells were portals to Xibalba, the underworld. Xibalba was a place of cold, rot, and tricks. When the rain stopped and the jungle turned brown, the Maya knew the lords of death were angry. They needed a messenger to go down into the dark and ask for mercy. The execution was a ritual of blue. The victim was painted from head to toe in a bright, sacred blue pigment. They were covered in heavy jewelry made of gold and jade. At the edge of the great sinkhole, the crowds gathered. The victim was cast into the air. It was a 60-foot drop into the black water. If the victim died when they hit the water, the message was delivered. But the most important part happened at noon. If the person was still alive, still treading water in the dark after hours of struggling, the priests would lower a rope. They would pull the survivor out. That person was no longer a commoner or a prisoner. They were a prophet. They had visited the world of the dead and survived. The Maya would crowd around them, asking, "What did the Lord say? When will the water return?" Chapter 5. The Ball Game of the Souls. The Maya also used a sport to decide who would live and who would die. It was called Pitz. It was played on a stone court with a heavy rubber ball. But this was not just a game. It was a recreation of a war between gods. Often, after a real war between two cities, the losing king and his generals were forced to play. The game was rigged. The stone hoops were high, and the ball was heavy and dangerous. The losers were not just executed, they were ritualized. Sometimes they were tied into balls and rolled down the stone stairs until their bones were broken. The final act was the axe. The Maya believed that the blood from a king's neck was special. They called it god energy. They would catch the blood on paper made from tree bark and burn it. The smoke was the food for the ancestors. The decapitated head was seen as a seed. By killing the losing king, the winning city believed they were literally planting the seeds for their own future success. Chapter 6. The Frozen Sleep. Thousands of miles away, in the freezing peaks of the Andes Mountains, the Inca Empire had a different philosophy. They did not like the mess of the temple or the darkness of the well. They believed in the purity of the cold. When a great crisis hit the empire, an earthquake that leveled cities or a plague that killed thousands, the Inca turned to Capacocha. This was the ritual sacrifice of children. The Inca did not choose criminals. They chose the most beautiful, perfect children in the kingdom. These children were seen as ambassadors. They were told they were going to live with the gods in the clouds. They would go on a journey that lasted months. They walked from the coast to the highest peaks of the Andes, climbing to over 20,000 feet. The air was thin. Every breath was a struggle. The priests would give the children a drink called chicha, a strong beer made from corn. They would give them coca leaves to chew. The children would become dizzy and sleepy. They would be placed in a small stone chamber at the very top of the mountain, surrounded by gold statues and fine clothes. They didn't scream. They didn't bleed. They simply sat down, wrapped their blankets around them, and fell into a deep sleep. In the thin, freezing air, their hearts would slow down until they stopped. Because it was so cold and so dry, their bodies did not rot. They became mummies naturally. To the Inca, these children were still alive in a way. They were the guardians of the mountain. They stayed there for 500 years, perfectly preserved in the ice, watching over the world they had died to save. Chapter 7. The Meaning in the Blood. In 1519, Men in steel armor arrived. They saw the temples. They saw the blood. They saw the skins and the mummies. They called it the work of the devil. They destroyed the pyramids and forbade the rituals. But were these civilizations evil? The Europeans who conquered them were burning people at the stake for their religious beliefs. The difference was not the violence, it was the purpose. The people of ancient America lived in a world where nature was a terrifying, unpredictable god. They felt a deep responsibility. They believed that humans were the only thing standing between existence and the void. They didn't kill out of hate. They killed out of a desperate, bloody love for the world. They wanted the sun to rise. They wanted the rain to fall. They wanted their children to have corn to eat. We no longer use obsidian blades or mountain tombs, but we still live in a world that requires sacrifice. We still have debts to the earth that we struggle to pay. The fifth sun of the Aztecs eventually set. The Maya cities were swallowed by the jungle. The Inca mountain shrines were abandoned. But the story of the blood debt remains. It is a reminder of a time when humanity believed that life was so precious it had to be bought with the most valuable thing we have. Every morning, when the sun rises over the ruins of the pyramids, it shines on the same world. A world that was once kept alive, heartbeat by heartbeat, on the edge of a black glass blade.